What's up, y'all? You're now listening to the What Now podcast. I'm Dr. Spencer Dupre, owner of Empower Chiropractic.
And I am Dr. Zach Thompson, owner of Within Chiropractic. The purpose of this podcast is to document and share the experiences of two young business owners as we open our own brick and mortar chiropractic practices. Join along as we discuss all of our wins, our losses, insights, and the many, many lessons we learned.
As a disclaimer, none of this is ever intended to be medical, legal, or financial advice. Yo, what is up, everybody? You're listening to the What Now podcast. Welcome back. Took a couple weeks of hiatus for us to rest, spend time with the holidays. Welcome back. So glad to have you here. Myself, Dr. Spencer Dupre, Empower Chiropractic in Argyle, and my buddy, Dr. Zach Thompson, Within Chiropractic in Colleyville. We're back at you again with another awesome episode. Zach, let everybody know where we're going today.
Yeah, man. So we're coming fresh off the holidays. Last episode, we talked about how to handle holiday conversations. And so this week, another thing that can come up just in the student mindset, doctor mindset, life mindset is the idea of comparison. We all do it. We all do it in most likely unhealthy habits. It's something that I personally struggle a frick ton with and have never really up until chiropractic school addressed. And now learning how to utilize it in a more powerful standpoint has been huge for me and our practice's growth. So that's where we're going to be diving in. Spencer, why don't you let the listeners know, what is comparison like for you? What was it like in school? And what is it like now in practice?
Oh, man. Yeah, it's definitely a real thing. I think to whatever level of, to what degree you compare yourself to, like a little bit is obviously healthy, but then like you can get to where it's like, oh, well, like the biggest thing I can think of is like when you always talk to someone about your practice, like the first thing that people ask you is like, how many do you see in a week? And it's like, dude, why does that even matter? You know? And like, that's like the first thing. It's right. It's like, let's put the measuring stick right up against each other. And it's like, how many are you seeing a week? It's like, oh, well, I'm seeing 300 a week, and I'm seeing 50 a week. And I mean, what's really the difference between that? Like just the amount of work that you have to do, right? Like, because a lot of those practices, like who can hold like 300 a week are built for that, right? Like, especially like learning startup mode, you know, like if I was seeing more than I was seeing right now, like it would be tough to handle, you know, like I have the room for like a little bit extra, but like to say I'm going to like quadruple my practice, like, and start seeing 300 a week would be insane, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but I feel like I really growing up, I mean, like with all the circumstances that were going on, like, you never know really what's going on behind closed doors with someone. So I really don't find myself like trying to measure up a ton. I don't know. I think I'm weird in that way.
Yeah, I think you are, because I would say majority of people would say they struggle a lot with comparison, at least with the conversations I have. And maybe it's just my RAS, my reticular activating system, that since I compare so much, I just look to see if others compare.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, obviously, like I'm conscious of like what I'm doing and like my numbers, and like I'm aware of like what other people are doing, but I really don't ever feel like anxious about like, oh, like they're doing so much more than me, or I'm so much better than them, like, or whatever. Like I really don't feel that way, because it's all like whatever you're ready for, you know, like in the gym, like I've never, ever been one of those guys in the gym to be like, oh, so-and-so lifted that much, I'm going to lift this much. Like never. I don't know. I think I'm weird in that way, because like I know so many people that, like in the gym, like, oh, seeing a guy squatting, it's like, I could squat more than that. And then like you load up and try to show him up, but like nobody's even looking.
Yeah. I think that's the one area I like never really struggled too much was in the gym, which is interesting since I spent majority of my teen and young adult life in a gym. But really for me, where comparison comes through, and I really noticed it in school, right, is you take your anatomy test, you take your neurology test, and then, well, I don't know about today's world now that everything's online, but you used to take it in person, and then y'all would go sit around the fountain or outside or grab a coffee, and the first thing people would ask is, how'd you think you did? And then when the test scores come out, oh, how'd you do? Oh, I made a 92. Oh, well, I made a 95. And for me, I got in this really bad trap my first three trimesters of when I would make a 92, which wasn't very often, let's be real. But well, okay, we'll go 82. We'll go 82. When I would make an 82, and then my roommates or friends that I would study with would make an 85 or an 86, I would just beat myself up. I'm like, how do they do better? I'm studying the same information. I'm working even harder, and somehow I'm getting a less grade. And it would really just throw me into this big, deep cycle, I guess, that I wasn't validated, or I wasn't valuable enough, or I wasn't smart enough, or I wasn't working hard enough, or really what I told myself for a long time was I was just dumb. And so this comparison really came through in this dark pattern. And until I realized it was demoralizing. And I'm super grateful to have had the experience I did super early on, because like Spencer talked about, when you get into practice, the first thing people ask you is, well, how many people are you seeing? Not, what was the coolest experience you had this week, or what type of patients are you taking care of, or like I saw you posted this thing on social media, like that was super creative. It's always, this measuring stick. And I think what can really start to happen is you just realize you're not able to measure up, or you find the people that you measure up to. You measure up too much. So that's really the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that was one of the. I didn't experience that in undergrad. Like, oh, what'd you make on this test? And but dude, when I got to Parker, or when I started chiropractic school in Dallas, then I never, like, that blew me away. Like how people will literally gather outside of the door and say what'd you put for this question? What'd you put for that question? And dude, I mean, probably for the first year or so, I really caught myself involved in those conversations and being well, no, I put this and I put that. And dude, nobody knows what they made on the test at that time anyway. And it's
that was always my favorite part, was, and then I don't know the results yet. And it's just this constant battle. Well, I remember people pull out their notebooks or textbooks and try to find the answer. And it's wow, really looking to validate here.
Yeah. And, I mean, yeah, I was definitely guilty of doing that. And then after a while, I was more anxious after the test than I was taking it. And I was like, man, why? It's because I just kept second guessing myself all the time. And then when you get your scores back, you don't actually know, you don't remember what you put. So why spend all that energy to do that? Mm-hmm. So I just quit, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to stop doing that, and then then the group message pops off. And it's got an 82, got an 85, got an 86, got a 91, got a 98. And yeah, I was like, man, why does this make me more anxious than the actual thing? And it's just because I was trying to measure up to everybody else. And it's at the end of the day, we all passed. And when I realized that, it's I just stopped. There's no reason to okay, did you pass the test or not? I mean, when we had to take part 4 the second time, I looked and I was like, is it pass or not? I don't even care what my points are. And that was it. Saw the pass and closed the website. And all right, I'm good. What's next? Yeah. And I feel that's been a lot healthier for me. It gives me a lot of anxiety, trying to compare myself to everyone else, because one, it's yeah, the competition of somebody else did better than me or whatever. But it's for me, it's the fact of trying to be someone else so bad that I would rather switch this measuring system that measures me with theirs. I think that's it for me, is trying to claim someone else's identity from the comparison, right? And until I really built a ton of security in myself, did I stop comparing myself to other people, because then I was I'm really happy with who I've become, and I'm really proud of who I've become, and whatever my best is, as long as I'm putting out my best, then I'm okay with that. And I think that's where a lot of times the comparison bug really strikes a chord in people that isn't realized, is not the fact that somebody else did better, but the fact that we realize that we didn't give our best. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the fact that like, oh, someone else beat me. It's the fact that like, I know that I could have done better, and I let myself get second place by not putting my all out there.
Right.
And I think that's like a really deeply rooted like comparison struggle.
And I think, in that struggle is where the power can really come through with comparison in a healthy standpoint. I know we both had similar living situations where 2, 3 of our best friends were all in the same house. We would all study together. So Alex and Quan, if you're listening, you'll probably relate to this, but there were plenty of nights where we would have a big test, and either myself or one of the other two would go to bed earlier, or we would watch an extra episode, and then we get the test results back, and we would let each other know, like, hey, was it good or bad, and how can I help? But we would have this knowingness of okay, yeah, Quan did better than me because I sat on the couch an hour and a half, 2 hours longer than he did. And the only person I have to be upset at isn't Quan. And I didn't fail. So I don't need to go down the spiral, but I can now learn from this, right? I can't go through this doctorate program watching 2 episodes of a series the night before. Some people can, right? They read over their notes once and it's good to go. I personally need to learn what worked best for me, and then apply those at the best possible, at my best possible abilities. And that's really what comes through with practice, is finding a way to, take what you know, talk to your really close friends, the ones that you're checking in with, like Spencer and I check in routinely, and get a deeper sense, knowing that we're not trying to compare to one another. We're not trying to, for lack of better words, big dick one another, but we're really trying to find a way to, help each other. Okay, what worked for you? What didn't work for you? And then from there, okay, what can I best do to now improve, or what is holding me back, and keeping me from where I want to go? And when you can have that in a really healthy way, that's when the true power of comparison can really come through.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to like, are you trying your best or not, right? Like the only reason that like you really should ever feel insecure about what other people have accomplished is because like if they're outworking you and you genuinely know that you're not like working your hardest, right? And like that doesn't mean like, oh, put your head down and grind. Like for me, like you see all these people who are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to this many meetings and I'm seeing this many people and it's like I'm putting this much effort out into marketing. It's like, well, it's like if that's sustainable for you, then that's good, right? But it's like I would rather work at like a very comfortable, uncomfortable pace, like if that makes sense, right? Like pushing my comfort zone a lot, but not like draining myself every single day and do that for 20 years than like just burn every single ounce of energy that I have in for like, for 2 years and then just be like, well, now I have nothing left and I've lost myself in this hustle, in this grind. Right. And it's like, but at first, dude, I was working so much harder. And then like, because the way that spiral starts is like, well, I see everybody sitting here and I'm going to outwork them. And then so you get your validation by outworking them. Then you like burn out because you have nothing to give, and then they pass you up, and then now the comparison bug hits you again because you're being outworked again, and then like it just eats away at you, but now you have nothing left to give, right? And so it's like comparing yourself to others is really never going to do anything. It's like comparing yourself to the standard that you set for yourself, right? And so like, we both hold very high standards, but they look totally differently, like in our minds. Like, there's like statistical standards, but for me at the same time, it's like, am I able to show up? Like, if you can't show up and be present and deliver your best for 30 people, how are you going to deliver it for 300?
And I think a big point you mentioned was the not burning out because you're doing too much on the uncomfortable side without enough recuperation, and it goes back into the principles of nervous system based chiropractic. If you were to have someone come in 5 times a week for the next 2 years, how do you think their system would respond? Probably not super well. Their body would resort to either a high sympathetic tone because there's just too much input, or just shut off and go to that low parasympathetic tone. And so really adopting that principle of and I think it's necessary right? What Spencer talked about, where you got to find, you got to be out and do all these things. You got to find your threshold. And then from there, see, okay, one, is this meeting fruitful? And typically it's the meeting you go to after that where the fruit is. Like once you decide, like, I don't think this is fruitful anymore, go one more time and see what happens.
Yep.
But also starting to see within your schedule that, okay, I did 7 events this week. And by the time I got to Friday, when I opened the doors on Friday, I was drained. I didn't want to see anyone. And guess what? 4 people canceled. Why? Because my energy was depleted throughout the week, that I wasn't ready for them. And somehow, whether it's energy, whatever, they knew to cancel. And then this theme starts to happen. And now you're 2 years in, and you're praying and hoping for an associate, because you're like, I just need to fend off, or not fend off, but I need to drop off all this weight onto someone else, versus finding your threshold and really playing the long game. I don't foresee myself. This is my purpose on life, is to serve chiropractic and enable others to unleash their potential and walk around knowing that they're capable of so much more in life. So if I push myself too far and can only show up for 2 years, I think I'm doing a huge disservice, not just to the next 18 years or to my family, but also to those people that will be searching in the coming years. And so for me, finding my threshold, and then testing it here and there. It's like, okay, I've been doing about 4 or 5 meetings a week, posting on social media 3 to 4 times a week, making cold calls 3 days a week. Let me see if I can add one more thing and see how I feel. I'm a big believer. Mark Manson made this post. He wrote a really good book, Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. It's pretty interesting, but he had a post a few months ago that I really resonated with. Was so many people have the week flipped, where they're looking forward to Friday and dreading Monday, where you should be looking forward to Monday and dreading Friday. And he meant dreading Friday because you've left it all on the table. You've put in every ounce of work throughout the week in a healthy manner, where you're now ready by the time Friday night rolls around, that it's bedtime. It's not let's go out time. I think Spencer and I had a joke. We went and watched the Mavs game. What was that, like 2 Saturdays ago?
Oh man!
And I think when the Mavs killed the Pels, whether or not the lineups weren't exactly even at the time. But anyways, I think we left the restaurant, the sports bar, at like 9 o'clock on a Saturday.
7.
Yep. And Spencer was like, "Yep, went out on a Saturday night, in bed by 9:30." And that's what we were capable of. I think we were all kind of falling asleep at the table, not because we don't enjoy each other's company, but we're all putting in a frick ton of effort. Like I don't have much else to give, and I just enjoy so much more of that lifestyle than not leaving it all out on the table.
Yeah, I think that was funny whenever you were like, "Hey, you want to go watch the basketball game in downtown Dallas?" And we were like, "Dude, I don't know if I can make it out there." And I mean, that's not like us being old. It's just me valuing my time in a different way, right? Like I value my recuperation and like this like recreational partying that like we all think is great. Like it's fun. Like we're not gonna lie. Like it's cool to go to places. It's cool to be in the crowd. But it's like when you spend like your entire time like serving all these people and like pouring out all of your energy to these people, it's like, man, I don't have anything else that to give. I thought I was like an extrovert, like for the longest time, right? How like people like to label themselves like introvert, extrovert. Like we know where you get your charge, and like I love being around people, but I really get my charge like just being alone, like being at home, like in the quiet. That's why like we just went on this trip this last weekend. That was like the most restful weekend I think I've had in a long time, just because it was so quiet, like, and it was so peaceful, and there was just so like little to actually do. Like it was nice.
Yeah, we got to sit back and watch, and it was, I think I took 2 naps on Saturday because it was just the setting. Like we were in the middle of nowhere, like an hour outside of Dallas, this pretty cool little farm town. But
we almost didn't make it.
There was no traffic. Spencer may or may not have put in the address wrong into the phone, and we may have driven an extra hour. But it was a Friday, so like we've been talking about, had all the energy in the world, and definitely wasn't upset. But anyways, it was just awesome, right? Like I was so like almost, I can't think of the word right now, but I was just mesmerized thinking back on it. Like, wow, like I was so relaxed, and it wasn't vacation. It wasn't, wasn't drinking pina coladas by the beach, but my brain was able to shut off in a really healthy manner. That I came back and I was like, oh, I have this idea, that idea, boom, 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 and I was able to recuperate, like Spence was talking about. It was awesome.
Yeah. On your note of the pina coladas on the beach, though, like I think that this is a thing that we really see in chiropractic, and especially like when you're rounding out like the end to go into school, like you're looking at these. Everybody hits you up and is like everybody by the end of school saying like, yeah, I have this job lined up, right? And or like you have all these people who are like, hey, you should come work for me, and like you see these ads like hiring a chiropractic associate, competitive salary, massive practice, and then you look up the doc, and like they've been out, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 10-ish, whatever, however long. And you ask them like, okay, like what are you about to do? And like everybody thinks like, yeah, I'm gonna hustle really hard for 5 years, and then I'm gonna hire an associate, and then like Jimmy Buffett it on the beach. And like to me, that's like to me as someone who's looking for a job, that's unattractive to me, because like you're not here to like bring me up and like expand your vision and expand your reach. You're here to just pass your burden, right? And so like everybody's like, oh, well, I deserve this because I put in the legwork. It's like, yeah, you put in the legwork, right? And so like, are you building a kingdom or just like a really, really heavy rock that you're just going to pass on to someone, right? Like passing on wealth and value to someone is way different than just like handing someone else like your problem and then just like piecing out, right? And it's like, well, like this is an awesome opportunity. Look at the legwork you don't have to do. It's like, yeah, but you're giving this this poor associate, this poor kid who's like looking to you for guidance and value, and you're just like, yeah, trial by fire, just like I got it. And it's like, how nurturing is that? It's not.
Yeah, makes me think about, and we know this. Any chiropractor listening, and I'm sure any healthcare practitioner is going to resonate with this. But we talk about all the time with patients is generational trauma. Tell me there's not generational trauma being passed down from doc to doc to doc to doc with these, heavy rocks that Spence was talking about. I mean, yeah, it's a grind, and it's well worth it when done the right way. But like Spence was talking about, there's no need to.
That's another thing too. Like that just like drops in for me. Like right when we say like, oh, it's the grind, it's the grind, it's the grind. Right. Well, like what is like the act of grinding something? Like what does that actually do? It wears away what you already are. Right. Mm-hmm. And so instead of people being like, yep, I'm on the grind for my practice. I'm on the grind for my practice. Like I always say, like, yeah, I'm just building my practice. Right. Mm-hmm. It's way different of a verb. It's like, I'm building something. I'm taking what would already exist and adding to it to where it can be larger, to where you can then distribute it to more people. Versus like, dude, if you're letting your practice grind on you and like wear you away, then like, what do you have to give? Like when it's done, right? When if you're on the grind and you're grinding, right? Like what is left when you're not? Nothing, zero. And then then what do? You start over from scratch. Like, and that's tough.
Yeah. And I think too, one thing that's really helped my perspective, and I've said this before, I'm not single, but I have a girlfriend, but we're not living together, no kids, right? But everything I'm trying to do in my weekly schedule, I always try to think about, okay, in 5 years, when I have little Zach running around and I want to be with him, like, can I still deliver on this grind, right? Quote unquote, or can I be building my practice with this sort of lifestyle? Or when kids come into the picture and family is really what I, value, am I just going to be a slave to my practice versus being an owner? And so that's really, really something I've tried to do when I reflect back on my week is like, okay, like, yeah, I was at 4 or 5 networking events, but I didn't get home until 8 p.m. each night. Like that, that wouldn't be great. Is it okay? Like once or twice a week? I think so. And for some, maybe that is right. But really getting that recuperation in, and really reflecting back on, is this sustainable? Can I do this for the long run? And when I'm ready, can I push it? It's the same thing with lifting weights. The same thing with being in the gym. You can't go in and just go balls to the wall from the jump. You gotta slowly progress your way in. Like I'm training for this marathon, right? It's on April 1st. That's not going to be an April Fool's joke. I am actually going to run it. But but my coach, my coach isn't going to design a program that week one, hey, run 20 miles. No, week one, the long run, quote unquote, was 3 miles. Right. I'm not just going to throw myself into the fire of this endurance training. I got to build up my capacity. And so I think what happens too when, Spence, we've talked about some of our friends taking these associateships right out of school is like by 6 months in, they're hating chiropractic. They're hating their situation. It's like, okay, maybe I could have, relaxed or waited a few more weeks or a couple more months before jumping right into the need to make money. But I also come from a very different perspective on that. So I know that's not always an option for people.
Yeah, I mean, like that's not an option for me, but like still, like my work now, like what I'm building now is worth. I mean, that's why I left undergrad early and like and took 2 years off of my timeline is because, dude, like 24 versus 26 is insane. Like I'm gonna have a 2.5-year-old practice by the time I turn 26. By the same time that I would have graduated from chiropractic school, I will have a 2.5-year-old practice. By the time that I go to my 10-year high school reunion, I will be in practice 4.5 years. And so like
That's
what
insane.
like that time is invaluable. And like whenever I went to undergrad and I was faced with that decision of like, well, what do you do? Like, do you finish the undergrad and like take your time and like run through it? Or like, do you take like the only thing we cannot buy back is time. Like we literally can't buy time. And like for me, it was a no brainer to be like, wow, man, 4.5 years versus just like a year and a half. Like, I don't even know, but like 4.5 years versus whatever the other smaller time is of that, like at my high school reunion at 10 years, like that's insane. Like that's what you can build in 4.5 years. Like you talk to docs who are like 5 years in practice and they have like this massive like dream quote practice that like students always are looking for. And on the same topic of like building a practice and like that's what I feel like it is, right? Like when it's me in here by myself, right, like working through my front desk systems, right, it's like I'm going over and over and over and over again because I'm trying to build something that is valuable to where if I am someone who's coming in, like what would be awesome is for me to like hire someone like in undergrad or whatever to work my front desk and then have such an awesome experience in my practice that they're like, I want to be a chiropractor, right? Like that's the kind of value that you build versus being like, well, I have all this work to do. Look at all this work that we have to do. Look at all this volume that you have to eat through. And like, well, wow, like, aren't you lucky to have a super busy job, right? I'm paying you double what everybody else is paying, but like you have all this grunt work, all this grind work to do. And then it's like, whatever. And like, same thing with an associateship. Like, I would like to build the practice where it's the associate that's being like, oh yeah, like it was really good. I learned a lot, but I just really wanted it to make it my own because I didn't agree with some of the things that went on over there versus like, this is the best experience ever. And I feel so much ownership over this practice and like what we are building here is so valuable that I want to stay for forever.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes not just for the people that will work for you in the future, but also your practice members. And really get to see that. And I think too, I mean, a guy I talked to a bunch and hopefully have on the podcast here soon, Travis Stewart, up in Boulder, Colorado. I got to see him a year and a half, 2 years into practice, and this man grinds, and I really respect him and look up to him for that. But we've also had some really awesome conversations of having too much control. That's something I'll probably let him speak on. But just more or less wanting to have so much control of your practice that you don't have control over your life. The practice is now owning you and you're not owning it. And when we get lost in this comparison, right, that we've continued to talk about, when you start comparing to docs that are 5, 10, 15 years into practice and you're like, oh, like I just need to be where they're at now. Dude, like you're 6 months in, like you're probably crushing records, every week. You're most likely doing the right things. No need to necessarily compare to them or idolize them, but ask them, okay, am I doing the right things? what can I be doing differently instead of being like on this hunt to be where they're at already. Um, that's something I struggled with when I first got in. I was like, man, I need to be seeing 40K in collections a month. I was like 3 months into practice, and I was like, no, like I gotta do the right things and allow people to have the right experiences and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I think while we're students, like if you're going and shadowing, and like the first question or like at some point you're gonna hear like how many visits and what their collections is like, right? At some point you're gonna hear that. But from your shadowing experiences, if all you're taking away is like, oh yeah, this is such an awesome, successful practice, they see 400 a week. If that's what you're taking away from your experience, you're missing out on the value. If all you're getting from learning from if you have an opportunity to learn from someone else and all you're taking away is their statistics, then you actually didn't learn anything. You just got information. You have no wisdom that you gain. You just gain knowledge, information, right? You could probably look up their stats on the city's business registry. You can probably look up whatever they report to, you can look that up. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you're going in there to get information that anybody can have access to, and you're not actually going to have anything to take with you to build you forward, then like you probably wasted your time, honestly.
Yeah. Versus actually listening to, and I did this. I mean, I was in an office my undergrad as an intern, and I was just amazed at how many people I saw. Not once ever considering what is the doc saying to his patients. What is the front desk doing on a daily routine? What is the closing operations look like? What are the closing operations look like? What is, a question I've learned recently that I think is super valuable to ask successful docs is, what is your Sunday routine? What's your Sunday night routine? What's your morning routine? Like asking these questions instead of just being like, wow, they saw so many people. This was awesome. Which it is, right? This isn't to discredit those that are seeing 400 a week. I think that's certainly a goal, at least for me. But what are their actions? What are their questions to patients? What does their routine look like? And I think trying to look at that versus, wow, that was a great adjustment, or wow, they just saw 30 people in 10 minutes. Like actually having the time to sit back and kind of open your ears versus just using your eyes would be.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Like, I think like one of the things, like whenever I was shadowing, the biggest thing that I did was I spent a lot of time at the front desk, a lot, because like you're going to be the doctor, however you're going to be the doctor. So like, it's good that you can learn from someone, watch them take care of 2 or 3 people. And then like at the rest of the time for me, it was all at the front desk, because like, I want to see like the interactions, like not with the doctor, right? Like what's going on outside of like when people are with me, so I can understand what's valuable for that. And then like I always ask, like, hey, if you were starting over everything from scratch, what would be your advice to your startup self again? Mm-hmm. And like, because that's where that wisdom lies. Not like, dude, you're gonna see 400. And I mean, everybody that I've ever asked that to is like, dude, just stay the course. Mm-hmm. Stay the course. Like just be consistent. Just show up consistently. Just don't quit. If you don't quit, like and if we're talking about in comparison, like literally if you don't quit and you just keep going, like you will by default be like 75% of the field, because so many people just want to get in. If they don't see quick success, then they just get out and they say like, oh, well, it's not for me. It's like, dude, this thing incubates and it grows and it builds but
yeah. And I mean, that's not to say you may need to quit some of the things you're doing, some of the mindsets you have, but you definitely need to stay the course and see it through. It's the same with the way we take care of our patients, right? It's enabling those to see it all the way through. I just had a guy in here today, 5th or 6th visit, low back pain came back up, right? He's like, dude, I thought this was over. I was like, well, if I thought we'd finish the back pain in 5 visits, I wouldn't have recommended a 28 visit care plan. He was like, oh yeah, right. And it's just a constant reminder. We got to stay the course. And he wasn't upset, and there was no like hard conversation, but it was, he's experiencing pain again, and thankfully we got him out of it super quick, but now it's back. And that's just, the retracing process. And I think we can, utilize and when we really introspect everything going on within our office, we can also start to see our mindsets change, and really embracing philosophy, not just from a I believe the body heals from above down, inside out, but actually utilizing that in your practice and knowing that it's a living organism uh, would be huge for a lot of us, and really starting to think about that when you're in school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like, I mean,
Go ahead.
Yeah, but like in my closing thought, like, I mean, just like in people's care, it's gonna be just like in your practice, right? Like you can deliver the best adjustments ever, and like no matter what, like even if you think like you're the most magnificent healer, like there something similar is going to come up where someone is faced with another challenge, and you're going to have to learn how to navigate it. And you can either do one of two things: you can either embrace them where they're at and like show that like treat them with love and compassion and grace and help guide them through those things. Or you can be like, well, if you blah, 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 and just walk away. Right. And so it's the same thing with your practice, right? There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And if at the first instance you have an up or a down and you start looking at everyone else to like try to validate like your experience and like try to make you feel some sort of sense of security in that, then like that's going to happen every single time, right? And you might as well walk away versus rather like honor like the growth and honor like the how your practice is a living or breathing organism, and it is dynamic. And then like you should be like, wow, like this is an up or this is a down, and this is awesome. And like it's so good to be here for that experience versus like every time something changes, be like, well, what is everybody else doing?
Yeah. Yep. And I think that just keeps everything copacetic, nice homeostasis.
Yeah,
which is what we're looking to do with the adjustments, right? And so, my closing thoughts are: if you do compare, it's okay. Learning to do it in a healthy manner will go a long way for your success. But at the same time, you can always tell your friends, "Hey, I'm not going to share my test scores anymore. I'm not, really picking and choosing and not letting everyone know, and really having that close circle of friends that you can go to with anything, and that goes a long way. And so, really taking a hard look in the mirror with your mental state and with the mental state of others, because just as how you act like them, their mental state and your mental state will also be the same. So don't look to compare yourself really to anyone. One of my biggest mentors, Paulo Fili, he talks about the only person you have to be better than is the person you were yesterday. And I think that rings true in every facet of life. So hope you all enjoyed this awesome conversation. If you did, please leave us a review or subscribe or share us on your story. Other than that, we look forward to talking shop next week and seeing where practice leads us next week. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Peace out.
That's right. Thank you so much for listening to the What Now podcast. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. Have a blessed day. Bye.
Peace.